This has Islander fans very concerned. On the NHL trade deadline, the Islanders made a massive move, sending Brock Nelson to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for top prospect Calum Ritchie, a first-round pick in 2026, and a conditional third-round pick contingent on the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup. The Colorado Avalanche's playoffs have not been going so well so far, and neither have the playoffs for Calum Ritchie, at least by the standards the fans are holding him to. We're going to break it down on this episode of Islanders Digest. Before we do that, I want to remind you quickly to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. The support means a lot, and we are going to be putting out a lot more content this offseason, daily content for the New York Islanders. So if you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now let's talk about what's going on with Calum Ritchie in these playoffs. For the record, the play has not been bad. He has 17 points in 15 games. He scored in 13 of 15 games. Stefan Rosner reporting that on Twitter. And I've watched a game or two of the Oshawa Generals. He does look good, but honestly, there is some disappointment, especially with all the hype that Calum Ritchie had. He was supposed to be one of the best players in the OHL, and frankly, he is not playing like that for the Oshawa Generals. There are just other players on the team that are outshining him, and this has a lot of Islander fans concerned, especially considering the plan was to have Calum Ritchie play in the NHL next season and produce for the New York Islanders. And for the record, I still think he can do that, but there are concerns, especially in his play. And for me, I think the concern more comes that Ritchie did miss 2 of the last 3 games for the Oshawa Generals going into the playoffs. I have a feeling there might have been an injury involved there, and perhaps an injury is the reason why he isn't playing to levels he can. Because as we're going to talk about, Calum Ritchie has performed in the OHL playoffs before at a better clip than he is currently. This is not his full potential that he's playing at, especially now that he's older than the rest of the competition, and he really should be dominating at this level. Again, it's not that he's not playing well. I mean, 17 points in 15 games is good. It's just this is a player who's expected to make the jump directly to the NHL next season. Frankly, he should be dominating at the OHL level. There's a lot more scoring in the OHL than there are on other levels, such as the NCAA. And because of this, there is some concern, as we're going to talk about, and fans are voicing that concern. I mean, a couple fans, like me, have tuned into games, and they expected Calum to be more dominant. And frankly, in the games I've watched, he has been very noticeable, and I do want to point that out. While he is not always performing offensively every game, and for the record, the game I watched, I believe he had a goal, and he definitely had a goal. I believe he also had an assist. I don't know if he got 2 assists, but he had at least 1 assist. He looked good, but he's just not dominating the play like you would hope for a player who's going to make the jump to the NHL, at least offensively. Because I will say, in my opinion, and I don't know the advanced analytics or anything like that, it looks like he is dominating the play defensively. And the Oshawa Generals are now in the 3rd round of the playoffs. Defense is very important when it comes to plays. I think that is definitely getting understated. Some of the other players we're going to talk about that are outperforming him for the Oshawa Generals, first of all, they also were drafted pretty highly, so it's not like he's being outperformed by players who are not NHL talents. But still, he is being outperformed by these players, but I will say he is outperforming them defensively, and a big part of why they're able to put up these offensive numbers is Calum Ritchie is taking care of the defense. I mean, there's a stat line we're going to talk about later. He took like 39 faceoffs in a game, and the next closest player on the team that took the second amount of faceoffs took like 17, which is absolutely absurd. I mean, they're putting him out every single chance they have to put him out in the defensive end. They do, and that makes it harder to score, and we're going to talk about that. But the numbers are not where you'd like to see them. As you can see, Calum Ritchie with the 17 points is 5th on the team. There are 4 players in front of him who have put up significantly more points than Ritchie. Now, for the record, we got to get this out here. Beckett Seneca is a 3rd overall selection. So it's not like these players are not really good prospects as well, which is really important to point out. I know sometimes we don't know who other prospects are. 3 of these 4 players are very highly touted prospects. I mean, Colby Barklow was drafted 18th overall in the year that Calum Ritchie was drafted 27th. So this is a player who was supposed to be better, and for the most part, until this playoffs, he's actually drastically underperformed, playing the full season in Oshawa, as opposed to Ritchie, as we're going to talk about, actually played some games in the NHL, didn't have a full season in the OHL, and still Ritchie put up more points and had more goals. He was a better player than Barlow. And keep in mind, too, Ritchie is a much better defensive prospect than Colby Barlow, which is very important when we're talking about a center. This is a player for the Islanders. Realistically, the question for Ritchie right now is, at least for when he develops, I mean, there is concern now. I think where the concern is definitely valid is whether or not he's going to be able to start in the NHL next season. I still think he can, but there definitely is a little bit of doubt there, at least looking at the way he's playing in the OHL. But long term, I mean, this is a 20-year-old player. If it has to take a season in the AHL, big deal. I mean, right now, the real question is Calum Ritchie going to be a second line center or a third line center? It almost feels like it is guaranteed he's going to be in the NHL. And that is because he's just playing defense at such a high level, which these stats don't reflect. Really quick, I want to talk about some of these other players. Luca Morelli is the top defenseman on the Oshawa Generals, so he gets all those power play points, the quarterback of the power play. Drafted in the second round, by the way. Owen Griffin is actually draft eligible this season, expected to go around 70. He's having a really good playoffs after what was a kind of mediocre season, especially considering the Oshawa Generals are so stacked with talent. I mean, look at this top five. All top five of them are going to likely be, maybe not Griffin, we'll see, are going to be good NHL player, great NHL players even. Beckett Seneca, third overall, looking like a really good pick for Anaheim, even though it was a stretch at the time. But with Griffin, the reason I bring him up is he's the one player who has not been drafted yet. He's draft eligible this year, and he's expected to go around 70. And why that's worth noting is the Islanders do have a pick around the 80-ish for third round. Could potentially see the Islanders take a swing on him if he's still available. As we know, the scouts are definitely watching him a lot because they're here watching all the games for Ritchie, so that's why I mentioned him. But while the offensive stats in the playoffs have not been great, Calum Ritchie has still had a really strong season in the OHL. Now, he hasn't really taken a huge step from last season, which is another reason people are concerned. I don't think this is too alarming. I mean, at the end of the day, Calum Ritchie was not sent back to the OHL to work on his offensive game. His offensive game was good enough to make the Colorado Avalanche. Sure, he only got one goal, a goal against Ilya Sorokin, but he looked good offensively with the Colorado Avalanche. He had a couple chances, they just didn't go in, and he's more of a playmaker than a goal scorer. The concern more was going back and improving his defensive game. I mean, a -7 in his first 7 games with the Avalanche. And he went back to the OHL this season, and he did that. He was very good defensively and still put up good offensive numbers. I will say there is also some concern that he scored so fewer goals compared to the previous 2 seasons in the OHL. I do think part of this, too, though, is just due to having a slightly different role. After coming back to the Oshawa Generals, I think Beckett Seneca just had a huge step up in his production. Owen Griffin, as we've seen, has taken a big step up. And as a result, Calum Ritchie has been relied on less as the goal scorer on the power play and more focus on him as a setup man, which as a result, you get less goals. It is a little concerning. You want to see him score more, especially for an Islanders team that has so many players who seem to refuse to shoot the puck. But I don't think this is too alarming. I'm still very high on Calum Ritchie. Although, when we first traded for him, I probably would have had Calum Ritchie as the Islanders' top prospect. I now think Cole Yzerman is taking his spot back as the Islanders' top prospect. But still, while there is some concern, and I definitely think after this OHL playoffs, especially if he is healthy, because there is a chance that he is playing injured, the step back in production in the playoffs makes it a little concerning on whether or not he's going to play in the NHL right away. But long term, Calum Ritchie is definitely an NHL player, and it's going to make a big impact in the Islanders' future. Again, he's shown he can do it before, which is why I don't think there should be too much concern. I mean, last year in the OHL playoffs, he put up 30 points in 21 games, which is a higher clip, had 8 goals, 22 assists. Again, this is a player who can perform. I wonder if he's not playing at 100%. I don't think he's seriously injured, although injuries are one of the concerns when it comes to Ritchie, but he's been relatively healthy this season. I do wonder if this kind of means that it might take him a little bit longer to make that jump into the NHL, just because we were expecting, especially the way that scouts were talking about this player, for him to really dominate these OHL playoffs as a player who was talked about being one of the best players in the OHL. And I still believe that's true. Again, I don't think stats tell the full picture, especially with a player like Ritchie, who is doing so much for the Generals. And every award they give out, they talk about how hard he's working, how much he's playing. He's really being forced to wear every single, penalty killing, all that. And when the team is really close to reaching the finals, it just shows. I mean, obviously, he's playing a big role in that. It's just, you wanted more, especially as a fan. Now, quickly, we do have to mention another Islanders player. And again, this is just showing, he had this one game. If you look here, he had 39 faceoffs, 120 of them. It's insane how much time he's spending on the ice. One more prospect we do want to quickly mention, Jesse Numri is also playing in the OHL playoffs. This is another prospect. Now, granted, you're not as concerned about it because it was a 4th-round pick, but the offense for Numri, especially for a forward, is just not there at this point. And at this point, you really question whether this is an NHL player. We'll probably get a chance to see him in the AHL, and perhaps a switch can be good for him. He has been better in the playoffs than he was in the regular season, and part of this is definitely switching to NHL-sized rinks. That is a big transition for players. We'll see what happens, but it's not as concerning as Ritchie. I would say production-wise, there's more concern, but you just had less hope for a player like Numri. At the end of the day, almost infinitely better chances that Ritchie is going to be a major part of the Islanders than this process, at least at this point. Who knows? If I'm wrong, I'll be happy to have Numri be a great player for the Islanders. That being said, let me know what you think. Are you concerned about Calum Ritchie and his production in the OHL playoffs? Or do you think it doesn't really matter? Let me know who you think is the Islanders' top prospect at this point. Do you think it's still Calum Ritchie? Or do you think Cole Eiserman is a better prospect? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Let's go, Islanders.